According to a recent analysis, Michel Foucault has 1.43 million citations on Google Scholar, which is 70% more than any other author in history. This practically means that, to this day, only the Bible has a greater impact than Foucault at shaping Western society. Or, if we're to look at this on an individual level, Michel Foucault is the most influential person in the history of modern civilization. But why is this? Well, let's just say it's not due to him being an easy read. His ideas can often be overly abstract and somewhat dense. And more than that, he wasn't the most prolific writer. For example, there's this guy.
I'm Noam Chomsky. I'm on the faculty at MIT.
And if you don't know, he's basically a deity in the field of linguistics, writing or contributing to over 1,100 published works. While, on the other hand, Foucault's contributions amount to a little more than 400. So again, what makes Foucault so exceptional that he outpaces every other intellectual in citations? The answer to this lies in how his ideas strike at the core of contemporary political science and philosophy, particularly those ideas regarding the pervasiveness of power up and down and through institutions of every kind, and as well as his critique of modern structures like prisons, asylums, and schools. To help us get a better grasp of the magnitude of this idea's impact, let's point our attention to the scientist Eric Lander, who was associated with the Human Genome Project. Remember that multi-billion-dollar international project back in the early 2000s? Well, yeah, it was him and his colleagues who successfully sequenced the majority of the genome.
Here's the quote: "Our species can now read its own genetic code."
And this was a pretty big deal, considering that it was a discovery that instigated thousands of scientific hypotheses in the field of genomics. And we can see that reflected in our analysis here, where Eric Lander was referenced 728,394 times. That's a lot of exposure to the internet, which reminds me to tell you about today's video sponsor, Aura. So as you may know, this year has seen a number of high-profile data breaches, which raises some serious concerns about personal information security. For example, Dell suffered a breach that exposed 3.9 million customer records. But most alarming of all, just a few months ago, National Public Data announced that they had suffered a major breach, potentially impacting every single American. The incident involved over 2.9 billion records used for your background checks, which includes critical information like your full name, your email address, your cell phone number, and most importantly, your social security number. And it's been confirmed that the members of the hacker group have released this sensitive information online. And for what? For free. So if you haven't been taking your personal information online seriously, now is the time to change that. And right now, there's really no one better to do that with than with Aura. And here's why. Aura monitors your personal data across billions of data points, like the dark web or public court records, to alert you about potential identity theft. They also provide up to $5 million in data theft insurance just in case the worst were to ever happen. But aside from all that, in my opinion, what I think separates Aura from the rest is all the extra bonus services that they add on. I mean, we're talking a full-blown VPN service for secure browsing all over the globe, a password manager system to help you create and store strong passwords, and check this out, a data broker opt-out function. This, for instance, just notified me the other day that it found 23 data brokers that exploit my personal information, and it automatically requested for me to be taken off of their list. So for myself, I'm not going to leave my personal information up for grabs in a potential data breach. And if you don't want to either, go check out today's sponsor, Aura, using the special custom code aura.com/turtleneck philosophy, and that will give you a 14-day free trial so that you can allow Aura to find out if any of your personal information has been exposed. So when you compare the Genome Project to Foucault's notion of power, the difference is taking the effect of the Genome Project and essentially doubling it. Now you might ask, what made Foucault's ideas on power so revolutionary? A few things. One, the big one, is that his theory shattered the idea that power is merely something held by the governments or the elite. Instead, he argued that it operates subtly through everyday norms, language, and social practices. The next thing, number two, was that his ideas provided for us something that hadn't existed before, and that was a vocabulary for resistance. A vocabulary for understanding our entrapment within systems that shape our very selves.
The human system of exploitation will change, but only if we force it to change. and force it together.
But now I think it's this last little tidbit that makes Foucault's work so attractive. It's his refusal to provide answers. Go ahead and look for yourself. From ideas on the human body to institutional power,
to the archaeology of knowledge.
Foucault doesn't tell us what to do in light of our entanglement in these vast networks of social interaction. Instead, you could say he's more like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, in simply revealing the machinery behind the curtain. Or maybe that was Toto. And in a sense, this is what it meant to be a postmodernist. It meant doing the work of deconstruction.
I'm gonna wreck it!
Deconstruction in philosophy is the business of taking ideas or concepts and putting them through a ringer. Meaning that you're pointing out all the flaws and inconsistencies of an idea, and after you're done with that, just leave it on the floor. It's philosophical littering. And so, as a consequence, what this effectively does is it leaves to somebody else the restorative work. You know, all the constructiveness. And as shitty as that might be, the upshot of this approach was that it offered the professional research equivalent of an open-ended question. And this right here, this form of asking a question, may be the key to his unprecedented impact. But not only in how he asked it, it was also what he asked. In this way, his idea on power was a $1 million question, and it came without his own response to it. And then that left the door wide open for everyone else who would follow. And follow they did. It also can't be ignored that his philosophy is so interdisciplinary in nature, and so that too widens the door even more to inspired researchers. From fields like sociology, anthropology, history, politics, science, philosophy, you name it. So to wrap it all up, the perfect storm for what made Foucault's work so popular was its broad applicability, paired with a rising sense of political relevance, paired with his unwillingness to answer his own question, paired with the power of his critique to motivate others to answer his question. And that's how you get 1.42 million citations.
All need to learn English or American.
And there you have it, our most successful intellectual in the world, the GOAT of academia, a fellow turtleneck bastard, Michel Foucault.